Hi, everybody. Welcome. We are so glad that you are joining us today. We are really excited about this partnership of series from Fostering Great Ideas and the Department of Social Services. We're calling it Make Room. And these events are all about how, if you are interested in becoming a foster parent, you can make room in your heart and your home for this idea of fostering. And for current foster parents, we want you to make room to grow and expand your comfort zone, to engage and dive in deeper to the wonderful things that you are already doing. And so today we are just going to introduce you to some people and some stories that we would love for you to hear. And first, we are so glad to have Don Barton from the Department of Social Services here with us to welcome you and tell us a little bit more about why foster parents matter, why foster care matters. So Don, do you mind introducing yourself and go ahead and take it away?
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Kaylee, for having me. My name is Dawn Barton. I'm the Director of Permanency Management here at DSS. I've been doing child welfare now this is my 24th year. So I always laugh and say that I've grown up at DSS, and I guess I kind of have in a lot of ways. So I first want to just say that, over the past 10 months amidst the pandemic, you as foster parents have really just gone above and beyond and continued to meet the needs and answer the calling of children in crisis who continue to need a caring, loving home until they can be reunited with their families. And I know that for many of you, that has meant assuming the risk of potentially being exposed to a virus, as well as trying to navigate following the CDC guidelines that we all are to help keep our kids and families safe and your homes healthy. And so I just want to pause and say thank you. You deserve all the admiration all year long, and even more so as we all continue, and especially you continue to navigate during the pandemic. So I just really did want to say in the beginning of this how grateful I am for each of you that have stepped up and answered the calling to foster. I will say that as I read a lot and keep up a lot with some of the Facebook social media posts that happen. And in some families, I see a lot of activity around, why am I not getting called for a placement? I went through this whole process. We got excited that we wanted to open our homes and our hearts to kids who need temporary care, but I'm not getting a call. And so I think what our reality is that we have a lot of licensed foster homes in the state who are willing to accept those very young children, those, I would say, 0 to 6, 0 to 8-year-old children. And so our pain point in the system and our need really is around accepting older children in SIB groups. It is so important to keep siblings together. I just can't even express how important that is. That is oftentimes children's only connection to some sense of family, even when they must enter our system. And so I can't stress that enough, that if you or a family that you know that is already fostering or who is considering fostering and going through the process now, I mean, perhaps they have just said, I think I could only do littles, but that's really not our need if we're honest. And so you may find yourself waiting for a very long time to get that call and to be able to open your heart and home and share with children, even on a temporary basis, what you have to offer. So I think that's one pain point. The other pain point I talked about was those teenagers. And I think that people think teenagers are super scary people, and they're not. They're awesome. They're wonderful. I have them in my house, and I have, in fact, I laugh and say my house is sort of the hangout spot, and I'm okay with that. because I love being around teenagers. They are great conversationalists. They can tell you what's wrong. They can tell you what's right. And I love that. Sometimes little people, it's hard to determine what's going on, what's right, what's wrong, what they need. And teenagers, they're not afraid to tell you what they need or what they want. So I'd say that's a strength of fostering a teen. Teens are, I mean, how amazing is it that you could be that a teenager's influence in how they, I mean, you can make such a huge impact on a teen's life. They are our future. I mean, they really are our future. And so no matter whether you get them at 13 or you get them at 17, those are critical years as they grow and they develop, that you can be influential. And so I would just encourage you to try it. I mean, perhaps you try it with just doing a respite, agreeing to take a respite for a family. Sometimes that's how it starts. And it's kind of putting your toes in the water before jumping all the way into the swimming pool, right? And so like keeping them for the weekend or keeping them for a week while our foster family goes and has a little breather. So anyway, I would just encourage you to open your heart, open your home, talk to your families about it. Obviously everybody has to be on board, but I would really encourage, if you are hesitant, I think providing respite and trying it is a really good opportunity to see if that would be a right fit for your family to consider expanding your age.
Thanks so much, Dawn. And we know that those are points that continue to be brought up. And I think other ways that you can get connected with teens, through mentoring or tutoring. There are formal programs and informal ways that you can do that. I know that we've got some pilot programs starting in the state to connect families with teens. And so we really appreciate, Dawn, all that you and your team are doing. As you think about the need from the state right now, is there anything exciting? Is there anything stories that we can celebrate with you?
So I was thinking a lot about this, and so much of our time over the last 10 months have been honestly celebrating COVID-19 stories, right? So it's like I feel like our world has been consumed with trying to navigate foster care in the midst of a pandemic. And that could be around visitation, it could be around placement. And so I will say that, we have certainly I have one family who actually reached out to me personally. They knew me through a personal friend, and that friend said, "Oh, I know Dawn, and she could probably help you." And so they sent me a message via social media and reached out, and they were licensed already, and they actually had a SIB group of 2, and then found out that there was a third sibling, but their license would not accommodate that third sibling. So the barrier was not that they weren't open to considering keeping the SIB group together. The barrier was their license was only for 2. And yet we find ourselves with a SIB group of 3. And I said, oh my goodness, that is a pretty easy fix. Like if I could hit the easy button on that one of some of the calls and questions and concerns I get, that's the easy one. So I worked with our child welfare licensing director, and she and I, navigated and we have to make sure, of course, that there's adequate space. And so we confirmed there was adequate space, and we made one simple change, and the rest was history. And I reached out for the case manager in the county and said, this has been done. So when you're ready to transition that little guy to his sisters and that family, go for it. So it happened fairly rapidly. And so that foster family was very excited, and that SIB group was put together. And so it can be something as simple as maybe you think that because you're only licensed for 2 and there's a SIB group of 3, you have to say no. No, you don't have to say no. As long as you have the adequate space, and we can verify that, that's a very simple change in your license. So I share that story to say that that was a super simple fix, but we were able to fix it quick and keep that sib group, get those sib group back together.
That's awesome. Of course, we all love hearing stories like that where siblings get to be together. And Dawn, I know that you gave a shout out to foster parents and the hard and incredible work that they're doing every day, but especially during the pandemic. Who else maybe on your team and the larger DSS team do you want to give a shout out to, or maybe even share some ideas of ways that foster parents can be showing our gratitude for all the people and the ways that are coming together to be innovative and creative and support not only foster families, but the children and their families during this hard time.
Yeah, so I think I mean there'd be so many people that I have gratitude for that work alongside us to do this work. But I think our child placing agency partners, we transitioned the non-kin licensing work over to them, and they have done a really great job. They haven't stopped, and they've worked with us as we have navigated through some visitation challenges and just other things that have come up during, in particular, these last 10 months. And so they've really worked hard to try to work with us and the foster families, try to be very creative and make everybody comfortable. I think one of the things too is some of our churches. So we asked our county directors to partner with some of our faith-based organizations, primarily our churches in the state and their county. As we moved into resuming in-person family visitations, we realized that, like today is beautiful outside, right? Well, right now it is. The sun's shining. It was thundering and lightning this morning, but it's sun shining now. But as you know, small little county offices are not ideal for doing visitation, and we know that, at least not during this pandemic. And they're really not the greatest place to do visitations in general. It's not very family centered or oriented, in my opinion. And so we have partnered with some of our churches who have graciously opened up their spaces. They have larger spaces so that families can visit safely, and they can have space, and you're not in this tiny little, I know some of you have probably seen the visitation rooms in some of the counties, and they're pretty small if you've got a large sib group and mom and dad in there. And so I'd like to thank our church and faith-based organizations who have partnered with us. I would also just like to thank the child welfare staff at DSS. They have not stopped. Honest to goodness, this pandemic has not exactly made them blink. I would say, in particular, our investigators, child abuse and neglect doesn't stop amidst a pandemic. And so they have still actively been responding to those calls and doing those investigations. Our family pres and foster care workers, the same things. They have still been, many have not stopped in-person visitation. Some families have continued with that in-person visitation along with the CDC guidance so that we can do that safely. I would also just say that, I think our medical community has really been amazing. The telehealth abilities have I don't know what we would have done in order to try to have continuity for our kids who need therapy, and we didn't have to stop that. So I'm very grateful to our HHS partners and then our medical community partners for helping to keep that continuity for kids, to make sure that they are healthy both emotionally and physically. So thanks for that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Dawn. And our South Carolina foster parents will get to hear more from you and the DSS leadership team tonight at the town hall. And we will link information for that in this video. But thanks so much, Dawn, and we really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, next we have Cathy, and Cathy is a foster parent and an advocate for children and families. And we are so grateful that Cathy is here today to share some of her story with us. So, Cathy, would you just mind introducing yourself and maybe telling us a little bit about your family's fostering story?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on, Kaylee. My name is Cathy Leek, and my husband Jonathan and I have been fostering for the last 5 or 6 years. We came to fostering like a lot of people, really, probably knowing very little about the system, not really understanding what the needs were, and really thinking very much about kind of where our family was at that time and kind of what we felt like we could provide. We considered adoption, we considered international adoption, and then somebody mentioned to us, hey, one of the local churches is offering an info session. Do you want to come? And I thought, okay, well, let's just go learn about foster care. I don't think we're going to become foster parents, but I care about kids. We care about being involved. Let's just go find out what this thing foster care is. 9 months later, we were respite parents licensed with the state, and we had a couple of young children come through our home initially, in part because the first day of foster care licensing class, I looked up at my husband and said, we're pregnant. So we actually had a third biological child. So we have 3 biological children now. We had a third biological child in the midst of getting licensed. So we decided to be respite parents, like Dawn was talking about. When we first became foster parents, we said, hey, we have a newborn, we're new to foster care, and we're new to having 3 young children at home. Let's ease into this. And so we did some respite. And actually, one of the children that we respited for, it was actually a sibling group, were older than our entire sibling set. So we have bio children. They're about 5 years apart, all 3 of them together. And then we did some respite for 2 siblings that were older. And as it turned out, one of those siblings needed to transition out of their foster home. And so our very first full-time placement in foster care was actually a couple of years older than our oldest. And I know that's something I really want to talk about, because some people hear that and they go, whoa, wait a second, I've maybe even been advised to never do that, or I've never even considered, or what kind of training would I need to have? That was literally our first placement out of the gate, was a child that was older than our oldest. And since then, we've done a variety of different kinds of fostering. We've done some emergency placements where kids are coming into care via law enforcement removing the children. We've had sibling groups. We've actually had a lot more sibling groups than I expected. And thinking about and preparing for today, I was like, oh, how many singles and how many sibling groups? Because we thought we would only do 1 younger child at a time. That's what we came to fostering. We had a 4 and 5-year-old biological child. I was like, oh, we're going to do like 2 and 3-year-olds. Turns out more than 80% of our placements have been sib groups, have been siblings. And we have figured out what's best for our family. And typically that is older than our oldest or younger than our youngest. We've actually found that fostering children that are in and among the same ages as our biological children to just not be a good fit for us. And so I think that's a very outside the box, right? Like maybe not typical way that people would enter into foster care, but we pretty quickly figured out like our people need their own space. And so if you're 7 in our house, like you're the 7-year-old, and you get to have that space for yourself. So that's been our journey. We currently have 5 kids in our home. Some are leaks forever, some are leaks for now, but at least for today, we have 5 in our home. Having a lot of fun. Some of them are downstairs. Maybe they'll pop in. That is the life of a foster parent. They're hopefully downstairs eating lunch and doing some e-learning.
Yeah. So Cathy, as you talk about kind of being surprised by taking on sibling groups and being surprised by taking on older children, you kind of found that spot for yourself. What has been great about having siblings, or what are some of the things you love about having older children?
I will tell you, one of the things I love about having older children is I love to sit down and talk with them. I'm a bit of a talker. I love a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a soda, and to sit down and chat and have like real life discussions. with kids that are going to launch soon. I mean, kids that are in this phase of not anymore bringing them in close to the family, right? It's a rubber band approach. When they're very young, we bring them in very close, right? And then as they get ready to launch, you're like a rubber band, you're going to launch them off. And so there's this real satisfaction around, this is a kid that's going to launch soon, that's going to make some of the most important decisions of their life over the next 10 years. They're going to choose what they're going to do, if they're going to go to college, whether they're going to join the military, maybe who they're going to marry, where they're going to live, like some major big life decisions about who they are as a person and how they're going to contribute to society. And you're sitting there on the front row getting to speak into it. People who want to be effective of the next generation, you hear, oh, the younger generation. You want to affect the younger generation? Put a 16-year-old in your home. Put a 12-year-old in your home that's learning how to, budget for the first time. We had a young man in our home for a good long while, and he really wanted to earn money toward a car. And I was like, that's awesome. How much do you think a car costs? He had no idea, right? And so it's just thinking about, okay, how much does a car cost? And like, how many summers do you have until you can drive? And how much would you need to charge per lawn to mow a lawn to be able to earn that much money over the next couple of summers to be able to buy a car? And gosh darn it, he did it. When he left our home, he has enough money to go buy a car a year early because he was so good at saving his money. He was also incredibly generous and would like get presents for his sister, and just sweet, sweet young man. But I think there's just something very satisfying about that. Still young enough, needs hugs, needs good, gentle, healthy touch, right? Lots of fist bumps and high fives. So you still get some of that. Even those young men, they need a good side hug every once in a while, right? But then you can have conversations that are like very real about what's your life going to be like after foster care? What's your life going to be like when you go home?
So we heard from Dawn, that the significant need right now, the reality is not for young children.
Right.
And this is something that you are passionate about and that you talk about often. Talk to us about why it is a good thing that, while it might be discouraging or disappointing at first to those families, foster and adopt families that are looking for younger children, why is it a good thing that there's not a lot of calls right now for those young children?
It is a great thing, Kaylee. I'm so glad you asked me about this. Y'all, it is wonderful that we have waiting parents that are willing to take young children in our child welfare system in South Carolina, that we have essentially eliminated the young child orphan crisis, the young child, vulnerable child crisis, in that we do not have children languishing in orphanages. We do not have children languishing in group homes. If you are a single 5-year-old coming into foster care, which by the way, is the worst day of your life, okay? You of not your own fault, right, are being removed from your home, everything you've ever known, your pet, your bed, your favorite things, all your stuff is in a trash bag with a stranger. You're terrified. You are not grateful, happy, and excited. You don't languish. There's a place for you. There's multiple places for you. And DSS has then the option to do a best fit placement with their placement team, that they don't just have to put that 5-year-old in the one available place in the state that will take them simply because of their age and gender, that they actually have multiple choices and they can think about the family dynamic, how close they are to the biological family, whether or not the child will have their own room or will be sharing. I mean, they really get to think about what is the best fit placement. Y'all, that's the kind of system we want. That's the kind of system we want, where we, the parents, do the hard thing, where we have to be a little bit disappointed and we have to sacrifice and we have to make the hard decisions, not these innocent children. I'm thrilled that we have parents that wait. And I know that's hard because so many, like Dawn mentioned, have gone through this very arduous process. Home studies are not easy, y'all. I've been through multiple. They are hard. They take time. It's like paperwork and then paperwork and then paperwork and then a medical and then a fire inspection and then a thing and then a thing. It's emotional labor and it's physical labor and it's time. And there is sometimes for a couple of families, a little bit of cost. You might have to buy a fire extinguisher, or you might have to replace smoke detectors. And so you go through all that because you want to help. And then you get there and then you have to wait. And I say, but you're the one that should do the hard thing. You're the adult. You should do the hard thing, not the kid. Because when we have waiting children programs, right, then our kids have to take on the burden. Our kids have to take on the hardship associated with, again, they're the innocent party here. It's not their decisions that brought them into foster care. And yet the kid is then having to take on some of the burden of that hardship. They're the ones that are having to change schools in the middle of a school year. I know a young lady right now who is a second semester senior who is on her way to a really wonderful future and may at the very end of her senior year have to change high schools. What a bummer, right? I don't want that for her. I wish that we had 6 families in her school district, right, that were waiting for a teenage young lady so that we could keep her in her school. I know it's hard for families when they hear, look, I called 7 years ago to DSS and said, hey, I'll take a 2-year-old little girl, because I too wasn't aware of what the needs were compared to what I was thinking about for our family. I was just thinking, what is my family's capacity, right? And I wasn't educated on what the need was. And I was told, hey, no, like, we don't need you to adopt a 2-year-old little girl out of foster care. Like that's not something that we need. That was even 7 years ago, guys. At the time it was, hey, we just don't even need new families for 0 to 5. So what I like to tell families though is there's still a yes for your family. There is still a yes. Your yes may just look different than what you were thinking. You, like me, may have been raising your hand thinking, I'll take one young child into my home because I've heard this need. I've seen these things in the newspaper. I heard my pastor talk about this at church. I want to be part of the solution. And you raise your hand and then you realize that you can't be part of the solution by offering to take one younger child, right? It's not that there aren't younger children available and in need, just many times they're somewhere else. There's domestic private adoption. There's international adoption. Unfortunately, there are younger children, many, many orphans waiting and in need of adoption, just not here in the United States, abroad. And so your yes just may be somewhere else. And there is a little bit of grief we have to go through, right? As the adults that are going, oh, bummer. Like that, I'm really disappointed. I was really kind of starting to fall in love with this idea and this potential child that I can help and this family that I can help restore. And now I'm hearing that maybe that's not the case. And so we have to do our own grieving as adults and then maybe come back to the system and say, hey, I might be open to considering something else. Sibling groups, older children, international, private domestic adoption. All things I know, Kaylee, as people contact Care to Foster, that they can get that help.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Cathy, and for that encouragement for families, that are just stepping in, but also are new or seasoned and maybe thinking about what's next, what's that next step. And I know you're going to stick around and share some more resources with us at the end for families that want to learn more. So thanks so much, Cathy. And we are just so excited. We've got Amber Peoples here. She is one of the amazing foster parent liaisons with DSS. I know this is a role that has completely, just overwhelmingly been supportive of foster parents and other stakeholders trying to get information, trying to get help with next steps and problem solving. So Amber, thank you so much for the work that you're doing every day. But would you just talk to us kind of again from this DSS side, this system or institution side, give us a look at why there is this need. And it seems like maybe all of a sudden, even though, as Cathy said, it's not really new, there's less of a need for families to take young children and more of a need for new and current foster families to look at other types of placement options.
Sure. So one of the things that DSS is really focusing on right now is placing children with kin instead of bringing them into foster care into a foster home. We've always assessed for relatives and looked for relatives, but now we're able to offer that the relative, the kin caregiver can become licensed and receive all of the benefits that a foster parent can receive. And so that really helps our relatives be able to say yes more. Some in the past they've had to say no because financially they just can't take in 3 more children, or even sometimes 1 more child is just too much. But if they can, if they know that the financial support is going to come and some of that other added support that foster parents receive, they're able to say yes more. So we have seen where we are licensing more relatives and they're able to stay with a family member instead of being removed from their home and placed with strangers. And of course that still happens. Children are still coming into foster care, but we are able to place a lot more kids with their relatives. So there's been a decrease in calls because of that. I think that we also saw a decrease when the pandemic hit, as everyone started staying home more, when school went virtual, things like that. There was a lot less eyes on children, less reports coming in, and as a result, less children coming into care. We've seen that pick up as the pandemic has gone on and on, but there are still less eyes on children. Parents can choose to keep their kids home and do virtual schooling, and so there are concerns about some of our children that are just not being seen as much anymore. But we're seeing, numbers go down because of different things. I also think that just like our foster parents, our relatives are a little bit more likely to say yes to the younger kids. So we can place a lot more younger children with relatives. And we may not see as many relatives step up for our older children. So they're coming into care at a little bit faster rate than the younger children.
Thanks so much, Amber. I think that's just helpful to know, like, what is going on, how have things changed. And I know that there was mentioned that there's sort of this new process, and you kind of referred to it with kinship care as the investigators and the caseworkers search for family members before a child is ever even placed in a non-relative foster home. Is there anything that you're able to share with us about that new process for ex parte to the judge, that might help us understand that process a little bit better, and what that looks like?
Sure. So when we know that a child has to be removed from a home, like I said, we're looking for those relatives first. And when we know we're going to get to the point where we've exhausted all of our efforts and we're going to have to bring that child into foster care, the caseworker is having to fill out a new form now. It's called the placement exception form. And let me make sure I'm getting the name of it right. Yes, the placement exception request form. So they have to fill out a 3 or 4 page document that explains all of the steps that they've taken to exhaust all efforts, and to prove that this really is the last resort. And so that has to be signed by their supervisor. It has to be signed by the regional director, so that everyone is on board with saying this truly is the last option for the child.
Thanks, Amber. And I, as a foster parent, I had no idea that was a step that had to occur. So for me, that kind of opens my eyes to, again, sometimes I think I center myself in the story as the foster parent, thinking when the child comes into my home, that's the beginning of the story. And that is so far from the reality. There is so much that happens before I become involved at all. And so I think knowing the process of how kids come into care can really be eye-opening into, why am I not getting calls? Why am I not getting placements of younger children? Or why does it seem like just overall there are less placements being made, especially for younger children. So thanks so much, Amber. Anything else that you would want to share with foster parents, kind of as you really have a pulse on what are the trends, what are the concerns, what are some of the things that foster parents are really talking about right now, especially if they would like to be considered for placement more often?
Yeah, I mean, I know Dawn hit on it, but really, if you want to be considered for placement more often, you have to really think about increasing your age range or considering taking siblings. And you can talk to your licensing worker about what would be best for your family if you need some help kind of thinking through that. But if you have space and you're thinking, okay, I might be able to do 2 kids instead of 1, um, you know, let your licensing worker know, and it really may change the number of calls that you're getting for placement.
And I want to be careful that we're not encouraging families to go outside of what they know is their capacity, what they know are the boundaries that they've set up for good reasons. Many families can truly only, provide for, care for, one child or a young child. That's what works for their family. So I don't think anybody is trying to pressure them into saying, taking a placement of a child that they don't feel prepared for. But what I hear over and over again is like, just consider the need. Protect yourself, protect your boundaries, protect your capacity. But consider where the need is. And so I appreciate you guys bringing that reality to the forefront and helping us not try and fill a gap that doesn't exist. So thanks so much, Amber. And you'll be providing more information for foster parents tonight at the town hall as well. And I know that we're really excited to continue this Make Room series with you and Randy, the foster parent liaisons. So thanks so much again for all that you do. Well, as we wrap up really quickly, we want to offer some resources. We want to offer some next steps. So really today we're talking to new and current foster parents. But I think some of these things are helpful advice for those that are just considering foster care, those that are just starting the licensing process. If you're just checking out foster care, or you're really just kind of dipping your foot in to see if this is for you, keep engaging with content that talks about the realities of foster care right now. Find yourself virtual groups to be a part of. There's so much happening online right now. Virtual trainings, and Cathy's going to share a great one with us in just a second. Facebook support groups. We've got so many things that we could offer. If you'll visit fgiforkids.org, which is fostering great ideas, we have tons of programs that you can be a part of. If you're not quite ready to enter foster care as a foster parent full time, maybe it's, taking that next step of becoming a mentor or a tutor, or, taking some trainings on grief and loss, on advocacy. There's so much there. So I hope that you will check out that website, FGI, the number 4kids.org, and we'll link to that as well. My number one advice always for people that are checking out foster care is talk to real life foster parents. If you don't know any, find them. They are there. Your local foster parent association, SCFPA, oversees all of the local foster parent organizations in each of the counties or tri-county areas. You can find scfpa.com, find contact information for your foster parent association, get connected, because no matter how much information we give you, no matter how good the training is, it will never match the realities of hearing from an actual foster parent who's living in it day to day. So connect, build relationships, and maybe your first step is just offering support. Cathy, for those who are just checking out foster care and maybe interested in learning more about teens and siblings, can you tell us about some of the resources that exist at Lifeline?
Yeah, so I guess I didn't mention it before, but we became licensed through a licensing agency, Lifeline Children's Services, years ago. We're so impacted by the training and the organization that 3 years ago, I actually became the agency state director here in South Carolina. And so I get to kind of speak on behalf both as a professional in this work, but also as a veteran foster parent. So one of the things that we do at Lifeline is provide free training to foster and adoptive families or prospective families. And like I said, that's one of the reasons why I left a for-profit, almost 2-decade career to come work at a nonprofit foster and adoption agencies, because I was so impacted by the quantity and quality of training. So I'm going to link to them. Is that okay, Kaylee, if I just put up the links? Because I'm not going to read these links. Okay. But the names of the 2 trainings, because you talked about capacity, right? Families are thinking about what's my capacity. I think one of the best ways to assess your capacity and expand your capacity is training, is quality training. And we recently did 2 specific to this idea of older children. One is called Fostering Outside the Box, and it's about fostering out of your birth order, which is what our family has typically done, or parenting older children, youth, teenagers. And we also in December did a panel night. Again, Haley, you talked about how great it is to just talk to people who have walked this road, who have fostered or adopted older children and teens. So we did a panel night CEU called Caring for Older Children and Teens. Both of these are for existing foster parents CEUs that they can get credit for. So all of these trainings that I'm going to link to, and there's a lot of other topics as well. I've taught a few of them. You can get credit for them, which is great. But if you're an adoptive family, if you're a prospective foster family, don't worry about that credit thing. It's just good information. It's good education that I think, you know, when people feel equipped, when they feel supported, when they know, hey, I'm not really sure if I can do this, if I knew a little bit more, like what it's like to parent a teen, what are some of the specific challenges around schools and cars and insurance and dating and phones, right? If I knew somebody could kind of come alongside me and help me with those things, maybe I'd feel more comfortable. So that was the purpose for those trainings. Really encourage anybody who's considering assessing your capacity or wanting to increase your family's capacity to check those out.
Thanks so much, Cathy. And those are both on the Lifeline Vimeo channel, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Lots of great resources there for all sorts of things. So thank you for sharing that. And of course, SCFPA has a virtual online learning management system, and they've got some great trainings as well. And they've got some live trainings that exist to learn more about some of those same topics. So definitely would encourage you to check out trainings. If you're interested in learning more about fostering teens and sibling groups and kind of diving into your role as a foster parent, engaging more with this idea of assessing and expanding your capacity, we would invite you to attend our extended Make Room event on Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. We'll link to that so that you have the registration available. We would love to see you there. It's going to be an open and honest conversation with foster parents. We're going to have some individuals with lived experience in foster care that are going to share their story about how a foster family really made an impact on their life and what they would like foster parents to know. And we're going to talk about relationships with your children and youth in your family's home. We're going to talk about relationships with their biological family and why that's important and how we can engage even if our discomfort feels like a barrier. We're going to have open and honest conversations about those things. So this is not for superhero foster parents who are already mastering all these things. These are for people who want to just check it out, learn more, no guilt, no pressure, no judgment. Just want to kind of take a next step of leaning in. If you are ready to expand your age range, if you have, heard Cathy's story or heard from Don and Amber about the need, and you are ready to say, I've raised my hand. I know I can do more. I know I can expand my age range, or I just want to start off by providing respite. You can contact your licensing agency and talk directly to them. They know you, they care for you, they have been working with you already, so they can offer you advice, and they can also work with you to appropriately expand what your home can offer. At the same time, make sure you find that appropriate training and support. Cathy mentioned those trainings from Lifeline. There is so much good training right now available from different groups. And so I would encourage you, don't just jump in blindly without preparing a safety net for yourself. That safety net might look like other foster mama friends. That safety net might look like training and resources. That might look like research. So I really appreciate you sticking it out with us a good 15 minutes longer than we planned on being here. But thank you, foster parents, for the amazing work that you continue to do every day. And thank you for taking the time to lean in and learn more. Cathy and Amber, would you just maybe leave our families with one last piece of encouragement or advice? Cathy, I'll let you go first. Sorry, I know you guys are waiting for each other.
You guys are awesome. You're doing a great work. You're making a difference in people's lives. Thank you for stepping up during the most incredibly unusual and difficult year. The emotional labor that goes into getting some of these things done for these kids it's not gone unnoticed. I know we so easily think that, oh, nobody saw that, that won't matter. I worked so hard and now I feel like I'm back at square one. It matters to these kids. It makes an impact. If you know a former foster youth, they will tell you, she did that thing for me. That foster mom did that thing for me. She made that happen. She worked it out so that I could see my mom, stay in my school, get to see my best friend, live with my sister. So you guys are doing a great work. Thanks. Keep it up.
Amber, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I speak with foster parents every day, and I hear their struggles. And, a lot of times when they call me, it's advocating for the children in their home. And so I just want to say thank you. Our foster children need you, and they need you to stand up for them. And so I just appreciate everything that you do to make sure that the children's best interest is always number one.
Thank you guys so much. Again, town hall tonight with DSS and DHEC leadership. We're so excited about that. 6 p.m. You do need to register on Zoom. We'll make sure you have all of that information. Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. DSS Foster Parent Liaisons and Fostering Great Ideas are hosting an extended Make Room, diving into your role as a foster parent, where we're going to have some open, honest, and maybe even hard conversations about teens, sibling groups, and building relationships with your child's family. So thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.